Today's topic, what are ya, Yelleh? Welcome to another episode of TABLEscraps, in which we present a topic related to tabletop gaming and then have a brief conversation about it with the live audience. Let's not waste any more time listening to this weird intro music. Let's get right into today's discussion. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of TABLEscraps, the live streaming show right here on Pair of Dice Paradise, where we discuss various different topics about tabletop gaming and the industry and media creation and just everything about games. And the best part about this show is that I don't sit here and just discuss this all by myself. I am joined, as usual, by the live streaming YouTube audience who is joining me in the chat window. So what we're going to do is we are going to present a question that has been posed to us by a viewer, and I'm going to give a quick response to it, and then we're going to turn over to the YouTube chat for 5 or so other responses to see what people have to say about it over there. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get started right away with today's question, which comes to us from viewer Martin Moss, who asks, what is factually the best color to play as? And I think that this is a fantastic question because he's not just asking for our personal preferences for what color we like to play. Martin is asking for an actual scientific analysis, the actual provable reason why a certain color is the best color to play. Well, Martin, I am happy to say I have just finished performing a series of rigorous scientific experiments, and I am ready to conclude my findings and share them with you. Here's what I know. When I sit down to play a board game, I have certain colors that I like to play. And I know, since they are the colors that I have methodically gone through and for various reasons selected to play, I know that they are the best colors. And for me, the absolute best color to play in a game is yellow. And I'll tell you why. Because, in my experience, more often than not, no one else wants to play yellow. So it's usually left over and sits there. Now, I will admit, others have discovered how awesome yellow is, and it does seem the more and more game groups I play with, and the more and more games I play, the more and more people actually are starting to want to play yellow, which is sure, it's kind of a paradox now. No one wanting to play it makes more people want to play it, but so far, no wormholes in time and space have opened and swallowed everyone up. So we're still okay. The other reason that yellow is the best color to play is that when you're playing, you're not always playing a board game in the best lighting environment. But no matter how horrible the environment has to be, yellow shows up the best in low light situations. Sometimes your blues, your greens, your purples, or your reds, your browns, your oranges, those can kind of muddle together visually, but yellow stands out from the crowd. And for those two reasons alone, I think that we can conclude that yes, yellow is the best color to play. So, with that problem solved for all of time and space, for all infinity, I'll conclude this episode with no further discussion needed at the chat. Okay, let's, fine. We'll go over to the chat and, we'll see what other colors people maybe want to suggest. Let's start out here, with Sasha, who says, I usually choose black. And that is a terrible typo for yellow, but I'll just read it as written. But I usually play black. I will play Kingsport Festival, Evil Purple, or Blood Red. It seems that the colors you choose are very thematic. If those are not available, I might settle for blue or green, but I avoid bright and happy colors. They make me grumpy. Well, I think that is very good information because it's taught us a thing or two about Sasha. So I know in the future, I will avoid bright and colorful responses to your comments because I don't want to make you grumpy. So, lesson learned. Let's continue on here. Mark Streed from Board Game Corner joined us to post a comment. So I'm going to read it because he took the time to write it. And Mark says, sure, yellow works. Well, thank you, Mark. Oh, wait, he wrote more. Yellow works. It's still part of the Board Game Corner color scheme, and it's the color of my Jeep. So I think the really important takeaway here is that if you're playing a game against Mark Streed, choose a color that is not a color in the Board Game Corner logo, because it'll throw him off. Or go key his Jeep. That would probably also throw him off. You know which one to look for in the parking lot now. It's the yellow one. Let's continue on with Equip Gilt, who joins us to say, blue is the best. Really? Prove yourself, Equip Gilt. Blue is the best as it is such a passive color that your opponents don't see you as a threat. The red player, on the other hand, is immediately targeted for his threatening shade. Ooh, I got to admit, you do make a good point about blue there. The blue passive nature. Now, let's take this a step further and let's apply this to yellow. Yellow is very warm and non-threatening. You know, it's the color of the sun. It's the color of daffodils and, kittens that have eaten too many daffodils. I would have to concur with you because of that. We have a comment here now from Zachary, who says, I always choose red. Really, Zachary? Your little avatar has so much yellow in it. I was sure that you were a fellow yellow meeple player, but I'll hear you out. I always choose red. It represents the blood of my enemies if I win and the color of my face when I lose. Zachary, we have never played a game together, but based on your response, I'm assuming that it would be a very intense gameplay experience. Toyota says, my favorite color is chartreuse because it's fun to say and it's a great color. I am trying to think of a game that has chartreuse included as one of the colors, but all I can think of is aquamarine, tangerine, and off-puce. I can't think of a single game that has chartreuse in it. However, there is a ZZ Top song called Chartreuse. Chartreuse. So I will give you a pass. FSZKVF joins us to say, yellow is the color that my colorblind friend chooses because it's easier for him to tell apart from the rest of them. I think that is actually a really good, valid point. I am really surprised all the time by how many games have red and green components that aren't clearly marked in other ways, and for colorblind players. And I've discovered that in like our local game days, the Eugene Games Gala, the Egg, which are the biggest events in my local town, about 10% of the people there are colorblind. And I thought, wow, we have a really high percentage of colorblind players, in our local area. But I came to discover after a little research that no, that is the national worldwide average of colorblind people. So if a game designer creates a game that's not colorblind compatible, they are potentially shutting out 10% of their audience. That's a really huge statistic. So I can totally understand, and I would encourage all of the game designers out there to make their games as colorblind compatible. Keep that in mind while designing. Kabuki Kid mentions, Jeff Engelstein did a Game Tech episode where there was a study that said that red wins most with certain types of games. Players subconsciously avoid taking on red because they see it as strong. Well, that is a very interesting conundrum. I've heard that again, in marketing and advertising, colors definitely are used to communicate certain ideas and feelings about products. So I can totally see that being applied to board games as well. I would be curious what the reverse of that is. I would think off the top of my head that white would probably be seen as the weakest, just because of the lack of color and being such a neutral tone. So if anyone out there knows the reverse of this, if there is a color seen as weak, let me know in the comments, because I would be very curious and I would want to go through and make sure that my opponents play that color. Finally, we have a comment from Matthew who says, the best color is the color you condition yourself to use in your game group. Sticking with the same color consistently helps avoid confusion during gameplay. And Matthew, I'm really glad that you brought this up because actually, honestly, this is something that entered my mind while I was preparing for this episode. I try to play yellow as often as possible for the amazing reasons that I mentioned earlier, but also to make it easier from game to game throughout the day to remember which color I'm playing. However, I have found that it can backfire, and not just me. I've seen it happen to other people I'm playing with, and we've discussed it and came to the same conclusion. If you do that too much and you get into a game situation where you can't play your preferred color, how many times has this happened to you where you will be midway through the game and you'll start playing the color you usually play, and you'll start using your opponent's pieces just out of habit? I do that all the time. So I actually have started doing something where I try to pick one color to play that day. And I try to mix it up, actually. One game day, I might be blue. One game day, I might be green. And so instead of being yellow every time, I'm actually every individual day trying to mix it up to get myself out of that habit of grabbing for the yellow pieces on the board. Because while it can help you remember what you're playing each day, it actually, in my experience at least, can backfire on you. I'm curious to know if anyone else out there has experienced that, because a couple of other people that I've been sitting at the table with who have grabbed the wrong color pieces themselves have said this exact same thing. So I'm wondering how universal that experience is. Let me know either in the comments to this YouTube video or over on our Facebook or Twitter feed, and we'll continue the conversation about this and any other topics that come up over in those locations, because right now we're out of time. But before we go, I just wanted to thank everybody because this episode has been made possible by viewers just like you guys who have been supporting Pair of Dice Paradise over on our Pod Pledge fundraiser. I really appreciate it, and that's what's helping us make so much content. Until next time that we get a chance to get together, I just want to say thank you very much for joining me for this episode of TABLEscraps, and I'll talk to you all again really, really soon. Yellow is the color Yellow is the color that my colorblind Today's topic. What is it?